Wait just a second. You're telling me that Massey is on time? He's got a second episode or another episode come out not long after his last episode. So we're actually on schedule. What is happening? Oh well, here we go. Moon Knight time.
Are you Tony Stank?
Ladies and gents, let's just jump right into it. No messing whatsoever. Moon Knight. Moon Knight, part one. So we're going to talk about, again, episodes 1 to 3. There's going to be 6 episodes in total for this TV show. It's on Disney Plus right now. The third episode just, came out this past Wednesday, so we're 2 days removed from the next episode, episode 4. So we're going to talk about episodes 1 to 3 now. We can, we can then chat about 4, 5, 6 the next time when they're out, and they're actually going to be finished. So 6th episode is going to come out literally days before. I think it's the 4th of May. I worked out is the last episode, which is literally 2 days before Multiverse of Madness comes out on the cinemas. So just to kind of put this theory out there, my theory is that it's all going to join up. It's all going to link up in some sort of way. But I suppose we'll just need to kind of see what happens. They have been keeping them relatively separate, the TV shows and the movies, but of course we saw things like the end of Black Widow with Yelena being told about Hawkeye, and that's also bled into the Hawkeye series. So, I wonder what happens with Moon Knight going forward. Now, I know there's a lot of in the comics and things, there's obviously a lot of team-ups. But I believe one of those team ups did involve Doctor Strange and Moon Knight, and the likes of like Punisher. I think they had like Ghost Rider and things as well in it. So will we see that? Possibly, maybe. I don't know. But that would be quite an interesting kind of turn of events if we do see things like that. Now, we're going to go through like the again the bigger sort of moments of the first 3 episodes. There is a lot of huge moments, and the episodes are relatively long, packed with lots and lots and lots of content. So the first scene in the first episode is a very cold opening. We kind of get nothing given away, but basically, this dude that we don't know puts a glass in his shoes and walks in them. Now, that's got to hurt. That's got to really, really hurt. When you see like Die Hard, when Bruce Willis steps in the glass, that's like the worst thing that could happen to yourself. If you ever stepped on like glass or even a Lego, because they're like the exact same thing, you'll know how badly that sort of hurts. We get introduced to Steven, who is Oscar Isaac, who's well, he is Steven at this part, but he is our protagonist in the whole show. And he's chained himself to bed with sand around his bed. Just it's basically so he knows if he has left his commode. And we see his little commute, his non-eventful commute to his place of work, which is the museum, where he actually ends up. We find out that he works in the gift shop. There's also, if you weren't aware of this, there's also a QR code about 5 minutes in, where when he shows the little girl the mummy, there's a QR code in there that takes you straight to I think it's Moon Knight in the werewolf or something like that, which is basically Moon Knight's first introduction in Marvel Comics. There is, of course, QR codes in the subsequent episodes as well, so look out for them. But they take you through to the next comics if you want to go away and read them. But yes, so we meet Steven. That he's essentially he works in the gift shop. He's treated as a kind of below like his manager and that sort of thing. He's kind of just almost like an outcast. Apart from this one girl who kind of talks to him in sort of like a flirty manner, and almost like they have some sort of prior relationship, talking about going out to get the best steak in town. That they apparently made this date, or they spoke about it, but Stephen doesn't obviously remember it. He's also a vegetarian as well. so kind of that this is where we sort of get, of course, if you weren't aware of Moon Knight and what it entailed, this is where we kind of get a first sort of peek um into the psyche of him, and the fact that, you know, there's maybe more to him than just his persona that he's given us at this moment in time. So yeah, we obviously learn about or kind of get to see more of Stephen. His accent is so strange. If you'd you know looked into Oscar Isaac and his sort of his kind of influences for his performance, and you know, his accent and the way he spoke and things like that, you'll be strangely intrigued to hear that one of the people that he took influence from in the way that his accent was to be sort of created was actually Carl Pilkington from like your Idiot Abroad, from Ricky Gervais and Stephen Merchant shows and podcasts. So it's really strange that he kind of took that sort of route with things. Now, obviously, Carl Pilkington isn't from London. He's a Manc. He's from Manchester. So it's kind of a weird sort of thing. But he did say it was the way that he kind of presents himself and the way that he sort of constructs sentences. He's quite he has quite a direct sort of almost antisocial way about him. Or yeah, kind of doesn't have much awareness in terms of social side of things. So I think that's kind of what he was meaning when going down that sort of route, which is quite interesting to hear and see about with him kind of going with that. But yeah, so Stephen is trying to stay awake. He's listening to something that's called literally staying awake. Obviously not wanting to go to sleep, try to keep his brain busy. But with a flash, he wakes up on a grassy mound with like a dislocated jaw and pops it back into place. Obviously, completely unsure of where he's at, and here's this ethereal voice that tells him to go back to sleep and surrender the body, and he reaches for a golden scarab that he holds in his pocket, and there's also a figure behind him, a sort of a kind of huge figure with flowing sort of mummy like wraps and a big shaft that you see behind him. So it kind of flashes in and out, sort of between different kind of set pieces, or sort of different parts of this land that he's in, and he kind of just essentially tries to find his way out. It comes across a congregation where we see Ethan Hawke's character sort of limp his way with a glass in his feet to the center of a sort of square, and he invites people to come up, holds on their hands, and has like a shafty stick thing that swings. He talks about judging in the name of Amit, and his tattoo, which he has like on his forearm, is obviously of like a scales, isn't it? You know, that you see when it comes to law, the balance of, I don't know what it actually means, but it's like the scales that you see, like famously the Metallica album, isn't it Justice for All? Or I think it's like I don't know the name of it, but it's like the lady that holds up the balance of scales. He's got that on his arm, and that actually moves with it as well and turns green if the person is good. And then he invites an old lady up, and it actually, you know, turns red, and her life is essentially sucked out of her. She turns grey, and a grey husk, and falls. Poor lady. So the Ethan Hawke's character, the guy with the glass shoes, not Cinderella style, but like glass in his shoes, he actually works out that Stephen is there, and Stephen intends to give him the scarab back, but his body involuntarily moves on its own, and the ethereal voice tells him that he's not going to be giving him anything, and he actually ends up like sort of getting pulled away, his legs looking like a massive, you know, when you have high thighs, high knees, getting walked away, and he actually ends up kind of like blacking out. And the next moment he wakes up with like dead bodies around him, blood in his hands, and the scarab back in his hand, and he ends up actually kind of sprinting away, grabbing an ice cream truck, and a chase kind of ensues. Now, I would have to say, this chase here, it's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool chase, but the CGI in this is horrendous. It's like so bad. I don't know why it's so bad. Like, just there's a guy that jumps out the back of the truck. The jump is so unnatural. It's quite clearly a green screen. There is like a fallen like log as well that just defies the laws of physics. It's really bad. The CGI is really bad, which is a shame, because it's again quite a clever sort of thing where he's again blackening out of the actual chase, waking up in the next part where the guy that's jumped in the van is dead in the back and he's holding a gun in his hand. And the ethereal voice, actually mentions Mark and says, "Wake up, you can't lose a scarab," that sort of thing. So yeah, it's got its good parts, but like, I mean, the truck. So it's the truck with the logs on it. Like, it just looks absolutely horrendous, like really, really, really bad. And yeah, that really kind of took me out of it, which is a shame. From what is actually an interesting kind of chase scene. Stephen wakes up thinking that it didn't happen. But he's, because there's no marks around the bed, he thinks it's kind of all a dream. And yeah, again, it's kind of, he takes his fish, which had 3 fins, but now has all the fins, to like a pet shop, and he's told that he was there not long ago. And again, we kind of see here, this is like the sort of throwing the doubt into the mind of him and us of what he kind of what he's actually doing. He ends up going to the steak restaurant and finds out that it's a completely wrong day that he's there. And yeah, so we're starting to all kind of unravel a little bit for him and for us, of course, as well. So we kind of get an idea that he's not fully in control of things and is missing potentially days at a time. So Stephen will check in his apartment, in his place where he stays, finds like a hidden like cubby hole sort of thing that has like a key and a phone in it. The phone is for the phone kind of has calls to a Layla, who decides to call, and she basically is surprised that he's calling her. He looks in a mirror as well and kind of gets the first sort of glimpse of something else being with him, or someone else being with him, and sprints out into like the elevator in his apartment in a complex. And there's a really creepy scene where he's like trying to close the elevator. It's like horror like, it's almost horror like, where the elevator's trying to close, and there's this figure that we've kind of seen before, like with it's kind of like a huge giant kind of thing coming down the corridor, holding a staff with like a big beak, and it stomps kind of towards him. Now, talking about how the CGI in the car chase looked terrible. The CGI for this looks incredible, and it looks really like genuinely horrific. Not in a bad way, but like but horrible, which is really really cool, really good to see. Really good to see that it's not it's not all gonna be gonna be tough going from sort of here on out. Stephen gets to work and he meets Ethan Hawke's character in his and tries to call for a security guard who also lifts up his shirt and shows that he's a follower of Amit and a follower of this guy, this Ethan Hawke's character. And pretty much it seems like everyone is has some sort of say in it, some sort of following towards Amit. Ethan Hawke explains to Stephen that that basically Amit was a god who judged people or was able to tell if someone was going to be doing something, going to do something bad or basically something there, and essentially looking to purge that before something happened. Ethan Hawke's character does the thing that he did with in the square with the shaft and working out if Stephen is good or bad and if he should be killed, and the old tattoo moves, but it keeps moving and he's told he has chaos in him. Again, this is kind of maybe a hint towards the fact there's not just one personality and one sort of life that's being judged here. There's obviously multiple. Stephen is then he goes, he's working through the day into the night and hears sounds at the end of his shift. He walks past this like massive crocodile and there's like a glass case in the back with like a sarcophagus or something, and when he moves, they actually move independently of him and watch him kind of leave the room, and we see this sort of like this animal figure follow him and chase him through the museum before he winds up in a bathroom, bathroom with a line of mirrors, and he actually starts to speak to himself or starts to speak to this person that's in the mirror, asking to give him control. And of course he has an American accent, a more natural to Oscar Isaac accent as opposed to the English accent he's been running with for just now. And he says, he basically says that he's going to save him, and Stephen ends up giving up the body, giving up control to this other side of him, this other personality of him. And we see the wraps kind of come across and start to engulf his body just as the animal jumps in and takes him down. And then the next sort of scene we see is him absolutely beating up this animal in the bathroom. The sink's broken and he's just absolutely pounding this animal with his cape flowing, and he kind of kills it, and turning around we get our first look at Moon Knight in his full garb, which is a sight to behold. It's really something. As you can see if you're watching on the side here, this is the kind of the armor or the sort of gap that he's got, and it's cool. It's really cool, really cool. And that was the end of episode 1. So we kind of talked about kind of more bits and pieces that sort of happened in a bit more detail, but I just thought it was worth kind of going into it, especially on the first episode, because it's set up quite a lot of things that will kind of follow through into the next couple of episodes. So episode 2. So episode 2 is called Summon the Suit, and it starts off with Stephen heading back to the museum. And going through the tapes, the sort of security tapes of last night, and essentially looking for him in for some sort of evidence about what happened. But we don't see the animal, we don't see what was chasing Stephen at all, and even him coming out of the bathroom after the fight, he just looks like himself, but looks up the camera and even says himself that that's not him. So it's obviously the other part of him, their personality of him that is kind of controlling him. Steve makes his way to a sort of a storage place, like you see in Storage Wars, but obviously not bidding for sort of Storage Wars, and I guess he's probably not going to find much of value in these. But he uses obviously the key to get into this storage locker of his, and finds it to have it's almost like a military setup, like a little camp bed, even bedrolls and like different fake passports and outfits, and again speaks to himself through the reflection to himself, who's called Mark, which he finds Mark Spector, which he finds through the different passports, and Mark explains to him kind of what he's doing, that he's working for Khonshu, who is as an avatar for Khonshu, need to do something with the Scarab. Steven, I'm gonna get mixed up here. Steven ends up having a panic attack and sprinting out of the locker, and gets chased by Khonshu. Gets chased by this beast that is Khonshu. With the we get a great view of him. We see the disembodied head that's kind of floating above the sort of skull, isn't it, really? And a massive beak in his big shaft. We get to see his big shaft as well, which is impressive. Mark gets away and is picked up by Layla, the person that he had obviously contacted, and he finds out that that they're married. Or I'm sorry, her and Mark are married. Her and Mark Spector were married. But her and Stephen actually have a lot in common. They recite French poems, and they kind of talk about like Egyptian stuff, Egyptian shindigs, etc., etc. So they've also got a lot more in common there. The police officers show up at Stephen's door and ask to come in and speak to him, and they kind of they almost kind of talk about the fact that they kind of insinuate that he is hiding something from them, and they find the fake passports and decide to take him in. And we find out a bit more about his backstory. They search the police computer that it shows him as Mark Spector, having killed people and executed people, really, in a dig site in Egypt. And as we get to the place where the police officers stop, which is not the police station, one of the police officers, one that's driving, reaches for the rear view mirror and shows off an Amit tattoo, and they leave Stephen in the car. There's a kid outside playing with football who also has like an Amit tattoo, or like a younger person with an Amit tattoo. And Stephen speaks to Mark, who we then find out that the followers of Amit have been listening into the conversation that Stephen's having with Mark, with himself, and kind of just getting to know more about his psyche and where he's at, essentially, before letting him out of the car. And yeah, Ethan Hawke's character is then there. So Ethan Hawke's character, Arthur Harrow, kind of takes Stephen under his wing a little bit and kind of chats to him about this sort of almost idyllic community that they have, and also kind of talks about Khonshu and the fact that he was a former avatar for him also. Then goes into a bit more about why they want to resurrect Amit, which is again Amit is the one that makes the choice between who is good and who is bad, even before it's kind of happened. And Stephen, brings up a very good point, the fact about like kids. What? So does it? Are you gonna judge kids for things that they haven't done? Are you gonna kill kids? Things like that. Which is a very, very good point. Then Harrow obviously asks for the Scarab, or where where it is, and to essentially get back to him. Um, so he kind of pushes back a bit, which is quite, it seems out of character for Stephen to be doing. So to actually, have the confidence to push back and really call out either inconsistent or like a potentially warped view, which as I say, it's quite a strong point for him, quite a um quite a good kind of a vision into the fact that he's potentially growing more and more confident in what he's doing, and things there. Harrow shows off the shaft that he has, and talks about how the fact that Amit gave it to her first avatar. Um, but yeah, it's quite interesting to see the fact that obviously Harrow has been an avatar for Khonshu, but is now kind of working with Amit, who's a different sort of god. Now, how did that happen? What got them in that situation in the first place? I don't know. It'd be very interesting to kind of find out, kind of going forward. So then Layla shows up. Layla shows up with a scarab, and basically kind of tries to make a deal with Harrow to let Stephen or Mark go, and Harrow actually uses the shaft to release like one of those animal things after them, and the animal forces them into like a kind of a dead end, a kind of a place that they lock themselves into. But only Stephen can see the animal. Only Stephen can actually see it, and he gets thrown out the window by this animal, and falls to what looks like certain death. Smashes a pipe on the way down. Is being told in his head to summon the suit, and he actually ends up with a superhero landing, in a Moon Knight suit, but not the Moon Knight that we have seen previously. He's actually in like a kind of 3-piece white suit with a his face all kind of obscured by like it's almost like a full face bald cap, but it has like a stitch to the kind of middle, which obviously kind of I'm thinking is showing his split personalities, potentially. I'm not sure, but yeah, actually it's pretty sweet. Then the fight ensues between again Stephen in the suit and the animal thing that Layla can't see, and there's also a kind of a fight. Stephen's obviously not quite adept with the suit, or the powers that he potentially has, than Mark is. He kind of adopts like a boxing stance, with rolled up sleeves, and manages to punch the animal, but then spends too much time almost celebrating it and gets thrown towards a bus, where he meets Mark Spector in the reflection, who basically says, give me control. Stephen gives up control to Mark, and we see the more standard kind of get up from Moon Knight with the cloak and the hood, and the kind of mummy like wraps, and we see this. Well, it kind of leads into what we kind of saw in the trailers and things. He takes out off the like moon shaped things from his chest, which seem to be unlimited. Climbs up to a roof and has the animal thing following him, and we see him in this moon. There's a fantastic shot of the crescent moon in the background, and him running along like I think it's a Thames Bridge or something, or the Millennium Bridge. I'm not sure, but it looks really cool. Looks really cinematic, and they fight and end up falling into this like churchy graveyard sort of thing, and Moon Knight impales the creature on like what's it called, like a spider sort of thing, and catches his Moon Knight boomerangy sort of thing and puts it back in his chest. He then removes the suit and searches for the scarab, and we find that the Harrow's actually got the scarab, which will obviously lead him to it's actually leading to Tomb of Amit, and Conchu shows up and basically tells Mark that we're gonna have to go to some place before Harrow gets there, and we're shown that of course it brings them back to Egypt, and we get this incredible shot of the pyramids, the Great Pyramids of Giza, overlooking Cairo. And that's the end of episode 3. Sorry, episode 2, not episode 3 yet. But yeah, very, very good episode. Very good episode. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I loved seeing more of the actual Moon Knight, and it was interesting seeing the two different parts of it. The kind of more Stephen Grant-y Moon Knight and the more Mark Spector Moon Knight was really cool. And then we're into episode 3, which is called The Friendly Type. Now, this episode, it's kind of been building like the more mythological, kind of legendary sort of feel of the show. And this kind of is one of the most the most wild ones. And I must admit, like, this sort of far in, I'm kind of surprised at how humorous it's been. There's been a lot more. It's been a lot lighter. I mean, there's obviously been dark moments, but it's been a lot lighter than I kind of expected it to be, which is quite a nice surprise, actually, to be fair. We see Layla getting her a passport made for her, so she can make her way in, of course, to some place, Egypt, and we then see Harrow finding the dig site for Amit's tomb in Egypt. And then we move to Mark Spector running across rooftops in Cairo, trying to find a guy who was obviously going to be like a informant for him, or at least get some information. But he's been killed by this gang of 3 that are obviously working kind of for Amit. And they fight each other. They kind of fight things, and there's a knife drawn. Mark looks into the knife, and then kind of blacks out again, and comes to in the back of a taxi where the guy's asking for, he said he's basically he's taking him to the airport, but he notices the people that he's just fought, and jumps out and asks, and basically chases them down once more, obviously back as Mark Spector. He is cornered in like a bazaar and is and blacks out once more after holding one of the guys by the throat, and he comes to, obviously, us expecting to see him as Stephen, but he's covered in blood, and he's literally just pulled the knife out of one of the people that he's been chasing. Very inconsistent to Stephen's manner and how he kind of works. Mark tries to interrogate the kid, but on the back of Conchu, telling him to hold him at the edge, but the kid says praise Amit and cuts the cord and falls to his death. Now again, I've said before, I watched You Rockstar as a part of my build up to doing the podcast, and one of the things that they spoke about on the back of episode 3 was the fact that the kid, the back of his jacket, actually, and it's been confirmed as well, had an Egyptian like headgear, which actually relates back to Kang, or more precisely Kang the Conqueror as his Egyptian pharaoh self. So I don't know if this may be, again, it's been confirmed by the set directors and things. As I say, this was on a New Rockstar's video, that it is actually a genuine sort of link. But does this mean that Moon Knight's going to link us into Kang the Conqueror? Of course, with Doctor Strange, Multiverse of Madness, the whole thing with like the kind of the multiversal thing all started with the death of He Who Remains, who was a variant of Kang. Does this then all bleed into the Multiverse of Madness, where Moon Knight is finishing a couple of days before Multiverse of Madness comes out? Will we then see potentially Kang in the Multiverse of Madness? We know we're going to be seeing some variants of Doctor Strange. But will it all kind of lead up to potentially Kang? I don't know, but it was a very interesting sort of a very interesting part that sort of came out of this episode. Khonshu makes like an eclipse. He pulls the moon over the sun, which creates like a sort of inverse Moon Knight logo sort of thing that Harrow spots and basically says keep digging, but it allows Mark and Khonshu to have a discussion with the existing gods and their avatars, and essentially with the view to to stop Harrow from releasing Amit again. So the meeting actually takes place in the inside of the Pyramids of Giza, and Stephen Grant side of the persona is absolutely fanboying out. But Mark meets Yatzil, who's the avatar of Hathor, of course, another Egyptian god. I'm not quite sure. I think it was the goddess of like love from music or something. Who apparently Khonshu has a prior relationship with. Mark is then he's then sort of given the opportunity to, or well, it's actually more Khonshu, but Khonshu takes over his body as Arthur Harrow is invited into the chamber as well, to discuss Harrow and his vision for the future and what he's going to be doing. Kind of going forwards, and Harrow manages to persuade the gods that there's nothing out of the ordinary, and that actually Khonshu is the one that's being naughty. The avatar of Hathor, after Mark is told that there's no issue with what Harrow's doing, the avatar of Hathor tells Mark that Amit was buried in secret and the location is hidden, that the gods don't even know, but there is someone that can find where it actually is, where the or is a way that they can find where Amit's tomb is, and it's essentially by finding this the sarcophagus that we kind of understand, or we get told, sorry, that is being held by a collector, somebody that Layla actually knows from a sort of a previous life. Now I didn't know, but this actor, the guy that plays the collector dude, Mogart, I believe his name is, actually died. This was his last performance. He died from a skiing accident, so there is a dedication to him at the end of this episode. But yes, they find the sarcophagus that has the instructions, and there's a battle between obviously Mark and Stephen as to who is able to take control of the body, so they can work out where where Amit's tomb is. Harrow shows up, and there's it kind of goes all sort of tits up for Stephen and Mark, as they kind of held captive by Mogart and his goons. Mark rushes away and becomes Moon Knight, and we see a bit more with Moon Knight and his powers, especially against humans. So he fights off Mogart's guards. We see this sort of super strength that he has, super speed that he has as well as part of this, and the fighting abilities. He is very bloody and gory in his fight. He throws his Moon Knight boomerang thingy-majiggies and kills the guards, while Layla is fighting off one of Mogart's goons as well. Stephen takes control of the body while Mark is fighting them off, becomes his kind of suited up kind of guy, and gets stabbed and taken to the ground, and ends up giving the body back to Mark because he can't sort of deal with it. Mark is kind of subdued as Moon Knight, but he's able to get out as Mogart fires towards Layla with like a spear on horseback, almost like a knight, and he catches her and kills. And kills Mogart on the horse. Again, I love this sequence. I love the kind of the shift between Mark Spector Moon Knight to Stephen Grant Moon Knight to back to Mark Spector Moon Knight, and the fact that they're almost starting to work together now as something which is really I'm sure it's something that will be towards the end of it. I'm sure they'll it's like the old partners that they start off kind of warring, or they start off kind of squabbling, and they put aside their differences and work together for the good of everything. So I'm sure that'll be something that comes as we go along. But we saw obviously shades of that from here basically. Mark and Layla try to use the sort of bits they've got from sarcophagus to make a map, but Mark gets kind of frustrated and doesn't want to do it, but essentially gives up the body to Stephen. So Stephen can do it and make the map correctly, so that they can follow this map. Again, a bit more about how they're going to be working together with each other, which is great to see. It sets up a constellation, but they obviously can't read the constellation because this was like years and years and years and years ago, thousands of years ago essentially. So Khonshu shows Stephen how to. Well, they basically end up turning back the clocks, or turning back the night sky essentially, so that the constellation matches and they can find Ammit's tomb. Again, we're talking about how the fact that it's showing more about Stephen Grant and Mark Spector working together, but it's also showing a bit about Khonshu working with them as well, which is a great touch. And Khonshu almost sacrificed himself for them as well, because by doing this, the gods end up enslaving Khonshu in stone, because he's basically disobeyed them once more. Arthur Harrow stands face to face with the stone of Khonshu, and basically tells him that he's won. It's his victory, and Stephen has now lost the suit, or lost the use of the suit, because Khonshu is now tied up and is now encased in a stone tomb. And then that's where we are. That's where we end on episode 3 of Moon Knight. Fantastic. Again, I'm talking about the fact that we're now starting to see some more teamwork between all parts of the psychology, and of course Khonshu as well. Be interesting to see where it goes with the fact that there's now no suit to kind of go with, but that's obviously going to come in with episode 4, 5, and 6. So we'll get to learn more about what happens with that. Again, episodes are every Wednesday, so be sure to catch up on them. I'm really intrigued with the third personality, because as I said, with the fight on the rooftops, there's obviously a third personality, or a third somebody that is in there somewhere, or it's hinting at that anyway. So I'm really intrigued to see who that is, what that means for things going forward as well, and how Arthur is going to, release Ammit, and what that means for our heroes kind of going forward. So yeah, I'm thoroughly enjoying the show so far. As I said, it's kind of weird because I thought it'd be a lot darker than it actually is, or it is dark, but there's a lot of humor, especially at the start with Stephen. But it is starting to kind of go more towards the sort of dark thing. It's almost like a light into night sort of thing, a day into night kind of thing, which would tie in with the moon, of course. But it's been very, very good so far. I've been thoroughly enjoying it, and I'm really excited for 4, 5, and 6. Again, it's been a bit of a slow burner, or not a slow burner as such, but it's built and built and built, which is great. I don't want something just to be one thing all the time. So we'll see how it builds, and if it keeps building, and what that means for episodes 4, 5, and 6. But that is us the end of part 1 of our Moon Knight discussion. If you have any thoughts on Moon Knight, again, please feel free to discuss them on Twitter at DeliveryMCU. You can always, put in the comments below if you're watching on YouTube, or of course, if you're listening on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. As I say, please feel free to give us a follow, hit subscribe button, and of course, have a chat with us around what you think about Moon Knight. But we will be back. So the last episode is just a couple of days before Multiverse Madness comes out, so we'd probably be looking at the week starting the 9th of May roughly, for part 2 of Moon Knight coming out. But in the meantime, take care. Feel free to chat with me on Twitter about this, about Moon Knight, about MCU in general. There's lots of stuff coming up. But guys, of course, well, if you do want to join in the Ko-fi, put in for as little as £2 per month, you get added into our merch draw every month. And you know, I put out just recently a lot of pops to the existing supporters, but I'm going to be branching out a bit more, doing a bit more, and potentially even having delivery for Tony Stank merch as well, which will be pretty cool. So I'm scoping all that out. But if you want to join, the link is at the top here, ko-fi.com/delivery for Tony Stank. You can, of course, find it in our link tree, which is on the Twitter bio. But guys, thank you so much for your support, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye bye.